Good morning, everybody. I'm Ross Brown, and I'd like to welcome you to this morning's Cyber in Serial webinar for the Southwest Cyber Resilience Centre. For those in the audience who haven't already joined us, membership is free and easy. Just go to our website, www.swcrc.co.uk, and complete the application. Really is that simple. You'll then benefit from our customer journey, monthly newsletter, as well as podcasts and webinars such as this. Please feel free to drop questions in the chat or ask them live in the Q&A session at the end of Mark's presentation this morning. And can you also please now make sure that you're on mute? Thanks ever so much. Right, so we're joined today by Mark Faithfull, who's the CEO for Cool Waters Cybersecurity, based here in the southwest of England. Mark is also the founder and lead consultant for Cyber Coach, as well as being a recommended keynote speaker. Mark is here to tell us all about the Cyber Advisor Scheme operated on behalf of the National NCSC by our good friends at the IASME Consortium. Mark, you're really welcome, and I'm grateful for you giving us your time today. And I hope that introduction was sufficient. Is there anything that I've missed?
No, that's great. Thanks, Ross. It's great to be here. Good morning, everyone.
Cool. And thanks very much for enlightening us about what a cyber advisor is all about. So I suppose if we go straight into it then, what is the Cyber Advisor Scheme and who is it for, Mark?
Okay, well, I guess to answer that question, we need to kind of take a bit of a step back. And because really we start with Cyber Essentials. So for people who are not familiar with the Cyber Essentials Scheme, about a decade ago, the government asked the spooks and the security specialists at the NCSC to come up with a scheme that would allow organizations to implement basic cybersecurity protections. And the idea of the Cyber Essentials Scheme was that it should be robust enough that if you had Cyber Essentials, you could be trusted to bid for public sector contracts. And that's kind of one of the realities today. If you want to work with the local council or national government, you will need at least Cyber Essentials certification to get on the supply list, even if you're things like an office cleaner, and you're not even processing data. And the Cyber Essentials Scheme was designed to be robust enough for that, but also, in theory, simple enough that any organization, regardless of its size, business or charity, would be able to qualify and pass. And that's been the kind of the story of the scheme for the last decade or so. And they've got the statistics now from running the scheme that firms that have got Cyber Essentials in place are about 80% less likely to need to make a claim on their cyber insurance. So it just kind of tells you how effective it is. But one of the things that they noticed was that there was still a section of the economy, of businesses and charities, that found getting to grips with Cyber Essentials was beyond what they could do, either because they didn't have any in-house IT skills, they weren't working with an MSP perhaps, or maybe they were working with an MSP, but that MSP skill set was focused on, Windows and break fix and installing laptops, and not cybersecurity and compliance. So how do you kind of close that gap between people who want Cyber Essentials but don't have the skills in-house to make the small changes necessary to gain compliance and to understand how it works? And that was really the genesis of the Cyber Advisor Scheme. So a cyber advisor is someone who can provide cybersecurity advice in plain English. Oh, excuse me, my assistant is joining in. Cybersecurity advice in plain English, particularly aimed at micro, small, maybe up to medium-sized organizations who don't have in-house IT skills that they can call on to help. And that's kind of really the focus of the scheme.
Okay, so I absolutely get that, and obviously we're keen explainers of Cyber Essentials here, and we'll be coming up for our third requalification in January for Cyber Essentials. And I do understand that there will be businesses who don't have the capability, so I understand where it sits within the market. So if I'm a micro and SME, how would I find a cyber advisor, and who are they?
Okay, so most of the time, a cyber advisor is working for a Cyber Essentials certification body, but they don't have to. but I think it makes a lot of sense to work with someone who can take you on the whole journey, right? And is not going to bail halfway through the meal, if you like. And so the scheme is administered by IASME, just like Cyber Essentials. So in the same way that you would go to the IASME website and look for a certification body to work with one, then you go to the IASME website and you look for a cyber advisor. So you just on the kind of the menu bar navigation, select find a cyber advisor, and they're kind of listed there. And there must be, I don't know, last time I looked, about 30 or 40 now across the country. As you said at the beginning, I work for Coolwater Cyber, so we're the only cyber advisor in Cornwall, although we operate nationally. And yeah, people can just kind of pick a cyber advisor that works for them and talk to a couple of different ones to decide who they want to work with.
That's fine. And I suppose actually it's a question that's just occurred to me. We obviously mentioned that the fact that some people can't afford to qualify for Cyber Essentials. Is it costly to engage the services of a cyber advisor?
So there's no prescription around costing for cyber advisors. So it's a bit like kind of Cyber Essentials or the audited cyber assurance from that perspective. So you would probably want to talk to a couple of different firms to understand what their pricing is like. So Cyber Essentials is like a fixed price for the certification based on the size of your organization. The cyber advisor is very much based on the size of the project, how much work are you going to help are you going to need from them, how much time are they going to put into it, and different firms will have different models.
Okay.
So yeah, just to answer your question, Emma, so it's the IASME website. That's iasme.co.uk. It's the same place where you would go to find out about Cyber Essentials.
Thanks, Mark. I was just about to pick that one up myself. And thanks for asking the question, Emma. And as I say, anybody else, any questions as we go along, please pop them in the chat. Or like I say, you've got the opportunity to pick up any live questions towards the end. And thanks, Mark, for putting it in the chat as well. That's great. So how did you qualify then as a cyber advisor, Mark?
Yeah, well, it's quite an interesting journey, actually. So there's two sides to the cyber advisor qualification. One, you need to be an expert in the Cyber Essentials standard, and so there's an exam that you have to take where you have to answer lots of questions to prove that you understand how the standard works and how you would apply it to real world scenarios that you're likely to face in small to medium sized organizations. And then, rather interestingly, you have to then go and do a role play. So the assessment scheme is run by the cyber scheme that kind of run a number of different certifications for different people. And so you basically go into a room with an assessor who plays the part of a business owner that is great at running the business but doesn't really have any expertise in IT. And then you have to guide them through a scenario in plain English, not using any jargon. Every time you use an acronym, you lose a point, kind of thing. And they just assess your ability to speak in plain English to people who are not cybersecurity experts and give them practical, pragmatic advice. So it's not about quoting paragraph this of the standard, or trying to tell people that they need to do something that doesn't make commercial sense for their business or isn't practical for their organization. So that's kind of, I think, one of the keys. And in the world of cybersecurity, you're always doing exams and getting new certificates for the wall. That's the kind of the nature of it. But I must say, going through that process, I thought it was the most useful, real world applicable assessment I've ever been through, because it was not about quoting the standard. It was about applying it to real world situations that businesses in the UK would face.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, and certainly it seems to be the message coming out of IASME, whether it be for cyber advisors or Cyber Essentials. They try and make it accessible to real world businesses who, as you say, don't necessarily have that expertise and that sort of tech knowledge to carry the thing through. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a great scheme. So we found out how you qualify as a cyber advisor, and interesting to see how they role played you. It must have been.
It was quite fun. Yeah, you just have to get your head in the game and kind of go with it.
Yeah, but again, bringing out those really important bits that you're not using tech or jargon or whatever else to explain things, and very often that's the thing that intimidates people, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And it's they also kind of make make sure there's a non-judgmental attitude. I mean, that's kind of the way that we would roll anyway. But just to make sure there's no kind of, you're doing what? Dear, you don't want to make people feel bad. That you can't use monkey as your password, type of thing. So there's none of that going on. Because at the end of the day, you don't know what you don't know. You're talking to people; they're experts in what they do, run their business. And so you can't make people feel bad that they're not experts in what you do. That's kind of the point. That's why you bring in external experts like accountants and whatever to help you run your business, isn't it?
Of course it is. No. So how does the cyber advisor scheme work then? I guess, I'm going to contact you through the IASME website. What happens next?
So if you're looking for a cyber advisor, what I'd recommend is that you would pick 2 or 3 to talk to, because they would all do it in their own way, and just explain a little bit about your business and what you're looking to achieve. You don't have to be going for cyber essentials. You can just ask for general advice. But my recommendation would be, if you're doing that work on your cybersecurity as a business, you might as well get a certificate on the wall, get that £25,000 worth of free cyber insurance, and have something to show that your potential customers will value. So I think it makes sense to go that last extra mile. So the way that we do it at Coolwaters, for example, is that we wrap it into a subscription service. So for a micro business, for example, that we have a scheme where we would charge £97 a month for a year and provide that cyber advisor service. So within the first couple of months, we would get the business cyber essential certified, and then provide ongoing cybersecurity help and advice for the rest of the year. Now, other firms will have different approaches. If you want someone to come on site and go hands-on with your equipment, obviously that will be more expensive than a project where people can work remotely. So the scheme is not at all prescriptive. It's about defining a standard of performance for the cyber advisors, and then for every customer engagement, it's completely customized to what that business wants and needs.
Oh, cool. So I certainly like the idea how it sort of leads into cyber essentials, and like you say, to get that certification and the sort of added bonus of £25,000 worth of cybersecurity by becoming cyber essential certified makes absolute sense. But like you say, there's no imperative, if you like, for you to sort of, once you've spoken to a cyber advisor, to go on that journey into cyber essentials. It can be a destination itself, essentially. Yeah,
and of course you can take it beyond it. So you could work with a cyber advisor and move on to Cyber Essentials Plus if it makes sense for you as a business, or one of the other IASME certifications. So you go for cyber assurance, or even cyber assurance level 2. So depending on what the drivers are in your business, what your customers and potential customers are asking for, because the reality is the vast majority of people we speak to, for them it's as much a compliance-based exercise as it is a protect my business-based exercise. And when I say compliance-based exercise, it's because the customers they want to work with are saying, you must have these certificates on the wall in order to get on our supplier list. And so although the cyber nerd in me wants people to wake up and say, oh, I want to improve my cybersecurity, let's do this. The commercial reality is, for most organizations, they're doing it because they want to grow their business, which is a perfectly valid reason. And let's go for it.
Sure. Excuse me. Yeah, I know you mentioned at the start of this morning's presentation that there's certain contracts, local government contracts, where you are required to have as a basic level cyber essentials. Do you see that as sort of growing across various industry sectors, that you will need to prove that you take cybersecurity seriously? in order to either become involved in a supply chain or potentially for submitting a contract.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're seeing now, for example, is law firms. The Law Society Lexel is now asking for cyber essentials from their members. So we're seeing that as one of the reasons quoted for people when they apply for cyber essentials. Also, the CQA, the regulator for the care industry. Again, we're seeing people like care homes applying for cyber essentials because the CQA has said that they need to have it in place. So I think we're going to see this trickle down effect. It started with commercial organizations saying, if you want to work for us, you must prove that you're cyber secure. The easiest way to do that is to have an independent certification. And now we're seeing it in industry regulators as well, like the Law Society, the Care Commission, and I'm sure others will follow. And of course, just for insurance, many people don't haven't necessarily joined the dots yet, but if you've got cyber essentials in place or any of the higher certifications, you will see your insurance premiums go down for your business. And so, although it probably won't be cost neutral, it will be a saving that you can offset against the cost you've invested in getting cyber essentials.
Well, that's really good news, and I must confess I wasn't aware of the Law Society and the Care Association, but it makes absolute sense. I mean, I suppose obviously the Law Society solicitors are carrying lots of personal details, and similarly with the care associations, and plus they tend to be run on a bit of a, dare I say, a bit of a shoestring. So we'll be really well advised to start speaking to one of our cyber advisors to try and sort of upgrade their security, because I know, across the industry, the only thing that people are saying is the thing that will grow is the number of cyber attacks that people are suffering.
Yeah, absolutely. And we could also take a lead from the NCSC as well. I mean, they're the people who sit behind Cyber Essentials. And sometimes some of the things Cyber Essentials ask you to do, it's not obvious. Why would I need to do that? But I like to explain to our customers, say, well, the people who sit behind this is the NCSC. They are the cyber guardians of the country. They see all the stuff that is happening at a nation state level, at an organized crime level. So they filter that down into Cyber Essentials to say, look, this is what would have stopped all those things that we've been watching going on. So even though we can't necessarily imagine how Vlad sat in his pants in his mum's basement in Moscow might make use of this thing, the NCSC has seen this stuff going on, and that's why they filter that down into Cyber Essentials, because they know that's what will make it an effective protection.
And that's obviously why occasionally we'll see an update or an increase in the information that's required in order to sort of re-qualify each year.
Yeah, absolutely. And in a similar vein, then, if you look at what the NCSC publish in terms of sector-specific advice, that again, we can, I think, assume that that's because they've seen those sectors of the industry being targeted. So we mentioned law firms have been briefed recently by the NCSC, and also the construction industry is another one that's getting a bit of coverage in the NCSC blogs and publications. So again, we can assume that's a reaction to the fact that industry is being targeted.
Mark, I know obviously we were chatting before we actually started recording this morning, and you only recently qualified because it's a brand new scheme as a cyber advisor. Are you happy to share some case studies, suitably redacted, of course, to protect those involved? But is there anything you can share with us or with the audience of the advice and the guidance you've been able to give people as a cyber advisor in what is a relatively short period of time?
Yeah, it's been a busy old couple of weeks, actually. We've had several new clients start, most of them pretty small, and for a lot of them it's a very similar story. So the smaller firms tend not to have policies written down. They have ways that they work, so they're kind of consistent behaviors, but they don't have written policies, which means in an emergency, or if you're suddenly growing as a business, it's easy to forget stuff if you haven't got it written down. As the old saying goes, when opportunities are like crisis, when they arrive, it's too late to prepare, right? And so having that, whether we're talking about how to add a new member of the team securely, or manage someone leaving the business, so you don't forget to cancel their passwords and block their access, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of a fairly consistent theme. And because we've been working a lot with these smaller firms, there's an awful lot of people using Microsoft 365, which is a great service, especially if you go for the business premium edition, which is only £1 or £2 a month more, but it gives you all of the security features that were previously only available to the most expensive, largest Microsoft customers. But most of it's turned off by default. And so, we spend an afternoon just going through and turning on all this wonderful cybersecurity protection that people have got, but don't know about. And because it comes out of the box, it's all disabled. So, that really helps boost the protection of the business with what they've already bought and paid for. So it's not necessarily an expensive journey, having to buy lots of new stuff. It's just making sure that the investments the business has already made are being used properly.
Yeah, that's quite concerning, isn't it? That people have got the tools that they can defend themselves with, but they're just not using them. And obviously that really shows the benefit of speaking to you as a cyber advisor who can give them that guidance and get things set up that, as you say, they're already paying for. It seems almost a no-brainer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We've got a question in the chat from Emma, and she's asked, would the monthly cost, and I'm assuming that's the monthly cost you're referring to a few minutes ago, would it include help if you were subject to some form of attack?
Good question, Emma. So the answer to that is yes and no. It depends on what we're talking about. If it's one of the kind of typical trivial type things where someone's password gets compromised, or there's like a phishing email and you just need to reset some passwords and stuff, then yeah, that would be covered. If it's something more serious, then no, there would be an extra cost associated with fixing that. However, that's the point of Cyber Essentials. You have that £25,000 worth of cover that's available. So actually what you want is a different separate invoice to pay for covering the cost of the cyber insurance, the cyber attack cleanup, that you can then present to the insurance company and they'll pay you to get that covered. So that makes sense. So for the expensive remediations for something serious isn't covered, because it means we can keep the monthly fee low and affordable. But that's what the Cyber Essentials £25,000 worth of cover is all about, to cover those extra costs in the event of something serious happening.
Which makes absolute sense, and Emma's given us a thumbs up, so I think she's happy with that answer. So thanks, Mark. Is there anything else that you've sort of encountered over these few months that you've been a cyber advisor that you'd be able to share with us, Mark?
I think one of the kind of the general themes is that business owners are becoming more and more aware of the risks that they face and are wanting to get their teams, their human firewall, if you like, the people to be cyber aware. It's one thing to have the laptops configured properly and the email system configured properly, but what you want is that your team that are working day to day, receiving these emails, surfing the web, doing their job, behaving securely. Which is why what we call security awareness training is quite important, and it's one of the things that Cyber Essentials talks about. How do you encourage your team to pick secure passwords, for example? How do they know what to do if they think their password is compromised, if they know how to change it, all that kind of stuff. So that's one of the things that we cover off. You mentioned in my introduction that we have another business called Cyber Coach, and that's what that does. That's that security awareness training, video based, human speaking to camera, not death by PowerPoint, but providing that practical kind of security awareness training in a way that hopefully makes sense. And as we're kind of running towards the end of time now, I know we need to jump into a little Q&A. So one of the key points that I like from our cyber coach is this little comparison. Passwords are like underpants. If you don't know someone well enough to show them your pants, you don't know them well enough to show them your passwords.
What a marvelous analogy! I really like that. As you say, Mark, we're sort of coming to the end. I did promise that we'd have a 5 minutes or so Q&A. I don't know if anybody has got any questions. They're happy to ask live or put them in the chat, and we can ask Mark. No, there doesn't seem to be anything coming through. So just before we close then, Mark, any sort of final thoughts for those people watching the webinar?
So I think it's that.
Sorry, can I stop you? Can I stop you? Just had a question come through from Mark. What are the most common pitfalls for small businesses?
The most common pitfalls for small businesses. So actually, I'd say that the things that Cyber Essentials covers, a third of small businesses in the UK in the last year reported a cyber breach. That's the ones who reported it to the NCSC. And the things that Cyber Essentials covers are the things that lead in most of the time to those breaches. So it's things like making sure all your updates are applied to not just your laptops and your computers and your phones, but also anything else that's plugged into your network, especially the firewall that keeps you safe from what's going on the internet. It's about making sure that everyone uses a proper password and they don't share them. Making sure you've got antivirus installed and that it's kept up to date. And that for anything that you access over the internet, what you call like a cloud service, so that's Microsoft 365 or Zero, anything like that, have that multi-factor authentication turned on. So you have to use your phone as well as your password to log in, because Vlad might guess or steal your password, but unless he's got your phone as well, he then can't get into your systems.
That's great. We've got another question coming from Alan. Do you work directly to end customers, or do you have services geared up to work alongside / with MSPs?
Yes, we do both. So we work alongside MSPs. Either they recommend us, or we'll go in white label and just kind of work as part of their team under their logo. And we work directly with end customers as well, just in partnership with their MSP that's already on site.
Great, thanks. And the thumbs up from Mark, or the other Mark, so good stuff. As I say, I know we're really coming sort of towards the end, so any sort of final thoughts, Mark, before we close?
So I would say that all Santa wants for Christmas is for people to join the Southwest Cyber Resiliency Centre and get Cyber Essentials certified. Fantastic.
I certainly wouldn't argue with either of those two premises. Okay, so that's the end of the webinar. We'll be publishing the webinar on our YouTube channel for any of your colleagues who you think may be interested in this morning's webinar, and we'll also send you a link to the webinar, because obviously we've been recording. And it leaves me to say is a huge thank you to Mark for all your guidance and advice this morning, and it just remains to say, please stay safe online, and speak to you all soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much. Bye, everyone.